Waiting over a month, we finally got my son's genetic testing. We were well aware that it was going to take a long time, but we were still anxiously awaiting. Recap, if you're new here, my name is Jess and my son has severe hemophilia B. I'm going to quickly cover what hemophilia B is. So hemophilia B means that your blood does not clot correctly, which means his factor 9 is not where it should be. For example, his factor 9 percentage is at 0.7%, which makes him a severe hemophiliac. An individual who does not have hemophilia has a blood percentage of 50 to 150%. Symptoms of hemophilia include spontaneous bleeding and extreme bruising, which is what my son had. He had extreme bruising, and that's why we took him into the doctors, because we're like, where is all this bruising coming from? Symptoms of hemophilia include spontaneous bleeds. The most common are joint bleeds. Now, 1 in 5 individuals who have severe hemophilia can have spontaneous brain bleeds, and I'm so thankful that never happened to my son before we found out he had hemophilia. If my son is not on weekly infusions, if he falls or hits his head, he could just have a bleed and bleed out. So that's why it's really important that he gets his weekly infusion. Treatment includes weekly infusions that we access a vein through a port implant on my son's chest. We have an in-home nurse who comes and does that for us, and she has been amazing. Also have to be aware, even though my son is on weekly treatment, his blood is never going to stay at 100% where it should be. So if he falls or anything like that, we need to just be made aware that that happened. We did get him a cap to wear and he hates it, so we're still practicing, but that's pretty much what the modifications of his life look like. Being more aware and weekly infusions. There's a lot more to this, but that's as much as I want to cover. There's just a lot. So moving into the results, 2/3 of individuals who have hemophilia get it from a genetic link, and 1/3 of individuals get hemophilia from a mutation. So when the doctor called me and told me the results, he explained that my son got a mutation, and it's a pretty common mutation that they've seen before. As of right now, there are 13 mutation markers that they can identify. In this book, there is a lot of really useful information. So if your child has hemophilia, I highly recommend it. It's also updated research from 2021. I'm not going to share my son's specific mutation just because I want to keep some things private, but as I mentioned, it's a common mutation that they see. So what happens is when DNA is lining up and splicing, some reason something did not connect correctly. Mutations happen for a variety of reasons. My husband and I sat down and really researched this specific mutation. There are some links that they have found, such as extreme exposure to chemicals and smoking, which did not happen to me. And sometimes it's just a random occurrence that nothing really affected it to happen. It just randomly occurred. Most common example is I see in biology is they use flowers to explain this. So I'm going to quickly draw a picture and I'll come back. So here we're going to talk about a male white flower and a female pink flower. And let's say they have a baby and that baby ends up having stripes, but nowhere in any of that inheritance was there stripes. So what happens is a mutation occurred, and this is the most common way I've seen it explained when I took biology. Mutations sometimes aren't either bad or good, and sometimes we don't even know there was a mutation unless you went and got genetic testing or somehow it displayed itself like hemophilia. Most common question I get is, are they going to test your husband? And no. So hemophilia is an X chromosome disorder, which means it's carried on the X chromosome. So when you have a male, you get your X chromosome from your mom and your Y from your dad. So even if I had hemophilia or I carried that mutation myself, there still isn't 100% chance my son is going to get it. So the next question is, did I carry the mutation onto my son? So they did take my blood and they found out, no, I do not have the mutation in my blood. So my son just happened to have the mutation that occurred when DNA splicing was happening. There's a lot of research there. It can go really into detail of how that specifically happens. But basically, when my son's DNA was replicating and getting ready to create him, something just didn't go the way it should have. The question is, did I have any type of vaccination? So I have not, when I got pregnant with my son, I did not have any vaccination before I was pregnant with him, other than a flu shot a couple of years ahead of that, and that was way before COVID. And I did not have any vaccines while I was pregnant with him. Overall, I was pretty healthy, and I'm not against vaccinations or anything like that. I just didn't do any before or during pregnancy with my son. Also, with the mutation markers that they can identify, my son's specific mutation marker, the things that could cause the mutation, none of it is linked to vaccines so far. So again, his mutation is just a random occurrence. I'm so thankful that there's treatment. And on the other hand, I feel like in a way my body failed me. Obviously, I don't want any child to have a medical disability or a blood disorder. It can be a little challenging at times. It can give me a little bit more anxiety just because I'm worried about him and his safety. And he's a little boy who likes to jump off things. He's curious and he's just really rambunctious. And I don't want to take that away from him. But on the other hand, he's not aware yet that he could hurt himself because of his blood disorder. So I just wanted to share what our genetic testing came back as. My husband and I are finished having children, but if we ever had children, obviously the doctor said it would be really, really rare for us to have another child with hemophilia. Wanted to give a quick update. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. I am more than happy to answer them. And thank you so much for your support on my channel.